Objective. After reviewing this video, you should be able to explain covalent bonding, identify the different prefixes, and name covalent bonds. Covalent bonding. Sharing of pairs of electrons that belong to two different atoms. Prefix. Added to the beginning of a word to change the meaning of the stem word. For example, read. What does that mean? Well, the definition I have for read: look at and comprehend the meaning of written or printed matter by mentally interpreting the characters or symbols of which it is composed. Basically, you look at a bunch of characters and you comprehend or just understand what is going on. Well, what a prefix does is change the meaning of that. And so we're going to add the prefix re. That'll change the definition. So let's change re to reread. And what does reread mean? Well, it just means to read the text again. So by adding a prefix, we change the whole meaning of the word. Did you know? Well, how does soap work? Why does soap work? Well, here's a picture, and I'll try to explain it as we go through. So, soaps contain fats and sodium hydroxide. And what that does, well, we have these soap molecules that have formed. Okay? And what happens is we have two ends. We have the hydrophobic end, which means hydrophobic means fear of water. So the inner part, the hydrophobic part, will attach itself to the oil particle. And then we have the hydrophilic, which means water-loving. And the water-loving part faces outward. And so we have all the hydrophobic parts attaching to the oil particle. And the hydrophilic, which is on the outside, which is polar, will attach itself to the water. And so when you rinse your hand off, the hydrophilic part will attach itself to the water and pull the oil particle away, leaving your hand nice, squeaky, and clean. Naming covalent bonds. First, you name the cation, then the anion, just like we did in our ionic compounds. So we name the cation, and then we name the anion. But when you name the anion, you got to drop the ending and add IDE if it is an element. And you need to add prefixes based on the number of atoms. And we're going to go over shortly what the different prefixes are. As we go through, a little side note is you can drop the prefix of the mono on the first atom only, and that'll come up on a situational basis, and when we come up across it, and I'll point it out. So the prefix for 1 is mono. The prefix for 2 is di. The prefix for 3 is tri. The prefix for 4 is tetra. The prefix for 5 is penta. The prefix for 6 is hexa. The prefix for 7 is hepta. And the prefix for 8 is octo. Now, how many of you seen these prefixes before? I have. Yes, that's right. It's because you've seen them, whether it's, naming polygons, like a triangle, or pentagon, octagon. Just different places you've seen these prefixes before, and they mean the same exact thing in this case. So here's some other useful information, kind of repeating some stuff and just wanting you to know. For a covalent bond, it's between a nonmetal or metalloid and a nonmetal. You can only drop the mono prefix on the first atom only, and the prefix will attach itself to the front of the element. So let's practice. So we're going to have the name. We're going to have to name N2O4 and BF3. Okay? So let's start off with the N2O4. So first we need to name the cation, N being nitrogen. Then we name O, which is oxygen. Now remember, we drop the ending and add IDE. So oxygen becomes oxide. Okay, now we just have to add our prefixes. And so for nitrogen, because we have two of them, it should become dinitrogen. And because we have 4 oxygen, it should become tetraoxide. And so the name is dinitrogen tetraoxide. Next example, we're going to name BF3. Okay. Now B will be boron. F is fluorine. Remember, we have to drop the ending and add IDE, so fluorine becomes fluoride. And so now we need the prefixes. Boron, you could put monoboron. However, this is the circumstance where we said we don't have to put the mono in the first element or for the cation. Okay, that's the only case. Now, because there are 3 fluorines, it should become trifluoride. So the name is boron trifluoride. Naming covalent bonds practice. So, here are 4 examples that I want you to try. Okay, now, hopefully you paused it, and now I'm going to go over them. So we have N2O5. Well, we have 2 nitrogens and 5 oxygens. And so because we have 2 nitrogens, it becomes dinitrogen, and the 5 becomes pentoxide. So it becomes dinitrogen pentoxide because there are 2 nitrogens and 5 oxygens. Now we have BF3. We have 1 boron and 3 fluorines, and so it becomes boron trifluoride. So with a fluorine, you drop the ending and put IDE. Remember that? Okay. Now we have P2O3. We have phosphorus and oxygen. We have 2 phosphorus, so we put dinitrogen. And because oxygen becomes oxide, we have 3 of them. It becomes diphosphorus trioxide. And last but not least, we have CO, which is a gas that you guys should not be around. There are certain alarms for this. You may have heard of it after we go over it, but carbon and oxygen, so it becomes carbon monoxide.